Okay, well, welcome to this edition of the AI Infrastructure Roundtable. Today, I'm joined by Nicole Coughlin, the CIO of Cary, North Carolina. Welcome, Nicole.
Well, thank you for having me.
Cary is one of the one of my favorite places, the whole Research Triangle. Can you tell us a little bit about Cary and what you do there?
Sure. So I am the Chief Information Officer. I've been there for 10 years. Cary is a community of about 200,000 people. We sit right outside of Research Triangle Park and right next to Raleigh. So lots of technological innovation and companies within the area, which is amazing. I also say sometimes it can be a little bit of that double-edged sword as your residents and community have expectations um, of all the things that they have in their work life, working for some of the great technological companies. So it's great.
Yeah, I know I visited SAS and Cisco and some of the bigwigs out in
Mhm.
that area, and that also makes for a more informed community having all that intelligent tech people. And that's what I wanted to ask. I as I came up to speed on smart cities, going about 10 years, 8 9 years. City of Orlando, where I live, I helped them when they won the Smart Cities Awards, and I got into the whole ecosystem. Cary has been a winner. I think I remember Terry Yates from your organization going way back
Yeah.
was talking about some of it. But can you talk a little bit about the philosophy of why you guys have embraced technology and the smart city direction?
Sure. Great question. Terry's still around, by the way. I saw him yesterday. Thinking for us really was thinking about we are a very lean organization in terms of staffing resources and thinking about the work that we do. We are funded by taxpayers, right? Like every municipality. And so we're always trying to innovate and think of ways of how do we leverage technology to become more efficient and effective, and to make sure that we're keeping in line with technology as it grows throughout, right throughout. Like we've seen the waves and peaks of technology, and sometimes I think about it in a way of, you know, even all of our applications and the work that we do within a community is completely diverse, right? From everything from routing trash trucks and fire and police calls to public works and finance, and everything we do now relies on technology. And so we want to make sure that we have the modern technology helps support operationally the organization, and then as well as external to our community, make sure that we're giving them the best quality of life that we can.
Well, you combine a couple of those things in. You have a glorious, beautiful
We
park in the
do.
center of Cary, which I happen to do my research, and it's really moved the real estate values way up around. Just a spectacular park. Can you talk a little bit about that project and how you integrated technology, and then how that's impacted both operations as well as citizen engagement and happiness?
Yeah, and every time someone talks about the park, I'm like, I need to find another word to talk about that park because it's spectacular, and it certainly was an economic development project, right? But the park has everything from an amphitheater to a bark bar, which means that there's a bar that sits outside of two dog parks, putting green, all sorts of kids and play structures, and it is constantly programmed with events. So it is a marvel for folks in the community to come to it. And the opportunity came from, really, we're very fortunate. We're building something from the ground up, designing this sort of masterpiece of a park. And we wanted to leverage technology in a couple ways. One, obviously, it's always to serve the citizens, right? Like they are in the center of everything that we do. So we have got Wi-Fi and other things, and we can talk a little bit more about it. But it also allowed us the opportunity to look at technology a little bit differently and try some things, right? Kind of go from that pilot to proof of concept, because the park has all of it's almost like I think of it as like a little mini city, right? You've got your trash, your recycling. You've got to keep the lawns, the Great Lawn, at its peak and clean, and there's lots of plants and all of the things, and safety, obviously public safety. And so it was an opportunity also to try some new things, right, and leverage technology that then we could prove it out and then disperse it in other parts of the town, kind of build from that center downtown and then build kind of the rings out into other facilities or other parts of the community. And I think I don't know if you mentioned it, but we have a LoRa network, which is a little bit unique in terms of technology. Now, we do have public Wi Fi and other things, and we've got cameras that require network. But the LoRa network allows us to put sensors throughout the park on a network that has almost no cost. There's very, very little cost. Now, it's not, you can't stream video from it, but it can tell you counts of people that, we believe there's some magic number of how many people go into a restroom that it needs to be cleaned, right? We want to make sure that the restrooms are always kept clean. So it can help us with that. We've got, same thing, it can tell us whether the trash and recycling levels are full or where they are at, so we can make sure that we're keeping that clean. We can kind of track where people are going on an anonymous level, like where people are moving through the park, so we can help better program the park and think about traffic and parking and all those types of things at a very minimal cost.
And putting that LoRa network in, you said it's very low cost. Is how difficult was it to install and to deploy?
Uh, I mean, for me, it wasn't difficult at all because I'm not climbing a tower. But so we had it right. So we're using our current infrastructure. So that's also right, a bonus for us. So it does require someone to climb up on the towers, whether it's our water towers or some of our other towers, to put the infrastructure in. But in terms of gateways, I think last time I checked, and we're still expanding a little bit, there's only 5 because it's such long range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of LoRa. I was a consultant to a provider for a couple of years, and I was amazed at the low adoption rate. That it has such practical application, and as you said, the cost of the equipment is not very expensive. So
Wow.
it's just how you install it and then maintain it. But I imagine that you have embedded employees that can take care of that, or you go to a contractor. Do you self-maintain or do you use a
It's a
contractor?
little bit of both. It
A little bit.
depends, like where their gateways are. So it is a little bit of both. And you're right. It's interesting. I think it's an incredibly underutilized technology in the United States. If you go other places in the world, it's heavily used. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know the rationale, but I believe price point, it's underutilized for sure.
Yeah, well, you all are a role model for the connected city. I have behind me your town hall in Cary. We had an event there. No, no, it's performing. Is that the town hall or performing arts?
It's a Cary Arts Center.
Arts center. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
which was the former high school years and years and years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But the town is beautiful, and we had an event there. And we had a whole mix of from American Tower was there, and Corning, and some of the big shots on the technology side. And you were unique in this sort of ownership, relatively unique and innovative. So basically, can you just you mentioned a little bit in the park, but can you tell me how you use it in other throughout town? What are
Yeah,
some
it's
of the
interesting. We've been testing some sensors in different places, whether we've got a big compost area where people can come and compost, and we're testing it there. Same thing, look at kind of levels. We just put in some sensors out at, we've got some really beautiful facilities, but USA Baseball to look at temperatures,
Mhm.
specifically on the greens to make sure that they are in tip top condition. Our horticulturist over at the park has been using some temperature sensors as well, and kind of those water gauges to make sure to keep the plants healthy. We've had some interesting discoveries in the park, and that the way some of the trees were planted, that there's enough kind of warmth and heat that between the where it's planted and the, I guess, cement or brick, that we could actually try to grow fruit trees, which is kind of interesting. A little bit, but we also use them out in all our greenways, so we understand how many people are in the usage of our greenways as well. And we have over, I think we're probably at over 90 miles of greenways throughout Cary.
And the departments, do they come to you with new suggestions on a somewhat regular basis? Does it basically, does your ability to innovate, does that get them excited?
It's interesting. It's a little bit of both, right? I
Mhm.
think people see it, and we go out and certainly share it. We've been talking recently about, we really need to have an open house and let the folks um, that are using the technology, and let them tell their stories, right? So that, I'm like, it's more impactful if we hear how they're using it and how it's making their days and lives easier than ours,
Mhm.
and really kind of showcase not just the sensor technology, but also as we move towards, right? We're going to talk about AI. So as we move towards leveraging AI to get people excited and kind of demystify any assumptions or risks that they may have about it or what it really is. So that's one of the strategies that we're going to take moving forward.
Yeah, so talk about that some more. I mean, last week I was in Coral Gables with your friend Raimundo
Yeah.
Rodolfo, and we were talking about AI and the adoption curve, and how your basic Chat GPT and your Microsoft Copilot, the adoption rates and the usage. What is the general sense of your constituency, the government folks? Let's start there before the citizens. But what is the demands or use cases that are starting to develop?
Well, let me talk a little bit. Let me frame it around our strategy a little bit, because I think that helps. So
Hmm.
we have developed a sort of, I call it like a three-prong strategy, right? Um, because if I asked 10 people what AI was within the organization, I would get 10 different answers, right?
Hmm.
And so we came up with an approach that the majority of um, the town really focuses on the generative AI, right? The chat GPTs, the Copilot, and many are using it today very effectively, right? And then we wanted to make sure people understand there's far more power beyond that, right? So then we start to talk about like productivity, automation, how do we build it into our systems to really help us. So that would be the second prong. And the third prong is really around building our own infrastructure, right? Getting our own GPUs, keeping it internal parts of it, right? So we have this
Hmm.
strategy that we wanted to make sure that as we're teaching and holding sessions and workshops with internal departments, that they understand there's something for everyone, or you can choose nothing. But our approach was very deliberately not to just pick a generative AI tool and say, here's AI, and we kind of check the box, was to get everyone really thinking about opportunities, whether it's in our permitting process, like where are your pain points? Maybe there's an
Hmm.
AI opportunity, or maybe there's not. We're really just looking at it as a tool and not so much framing it as we're going to use AI to solve all your problems, because we don't want to do that. And in fact, it won't. Um, but to get people thinking about where it may help, I've also found that at least for Cary, there are very much show me. Like I have to see things, right? I'm a visual learner. Like I have to see things to understand it. So part of it for us is even building out some I'm going to say like proof of concepts, not even pilots, but like more demonstrations of here's how you could use it, right? So, for example, if we um, shared with them how you could ask questions on video of a video, right? Whether that's our traffic cameras, right? And to start demonstrate so they can see what that looks like, or show them how it may help them wherever the holdup is, or the pain points, I shouldn't say holdup, pain points within their permitting process. And of course, generative AI, like, how to use it all day long
Mhm.
with checks and balances.
Well, the permitting, that's I'm actually working on a project with broadband permitting with BEAD, and I personally have been experimenting with putting a permitting process through ChatGPT for proofing and things like that. I haven't gotten all the way there, but it seems to be a really good fit. So why did you pick that one? Is that because it's such a repetitive and
I mean,
time-consuming task?
I'm using that one as an example, and that department is certainly interested for sure, and we've demoed a few things with them. But just as an illustration of where can AI be a helper and kind of augment the work that you're doing or speed it up. Um, that just happens to be one example. I also, think that as AI kind of matures, we'll be figuring out from internal applications, how does it help modernize maybe some applications that are legacy, right? Can you
Hmm.
put some AI over it? The other important thing for us when we think about working with our departments is there's a good majority of use cases that aren't singular to a department, right? So if we have a flood or even a special event, it's almost every department that's involved, from finance to public works to public safety, parks and recreation, and it's really just start to think about what is that kind of use cases that go all the way across, as opposed to what's in their little vertical of the operational work that they do every day. And I think that's where we're gonna I believe that's where we're going to see a tremendous amount of value, especially the more data that we can collect to help make those decisions.
The big conversation last week in Coral Gables with NVIDIA and Schneider Electric and a couple of government folks was the cost of computation, right?
Mhm.
And I'm a big believer in the AI factory and the sovereign nature for a government, and why you're eventually going to need to own your GPUs. And that was a back and forth of where that crossover is. And you mentioned it already. I remember you spoke at the NVIDIA GTC in DC. Talk a little bit about how you see that playing out, the sovereign nature, and then using GPUs to build your sovereign AI factory. Am I on the right track? But that's where you're
Yeah,
going.
I mean, you absolutely are. We're waiting for delivery, probably with everybody else. I think it's a couple things, right? Like there's not a one size fits all. There will be use cases that we don't need to do that. There will be use cases that we need to do that. We also understand public trust in data and the information, and
Hmm.
the level of importance that that brings, and that has a value to it, right? It has a strong value to it. Um, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. We're hopeful that ideally would love to be able to do something with our neighbors and partners and help them, because it is costly, or can be, right? You have
Hmm.
to figure out when you'll scale it, and there's also a lot of unknowns, right? In terms of, as you build out, what is the ultimate cost going to be down the road. I don't know that anybody has the answer to that, but I do believe that there is definitely value in building that infrastructure um, in house for sure.
And that you mentioned, you have such a great, rich university ecosystem there.
Mhm.
In Florida, the University of Florida was originally gifted They call it Hypergator. That was gifted by NVIDIA, and now they've bought a much bigger version. And others, that's like the Gainesville, and some of the others are pulling and running on that platform. Have you? Did I heard waiting on delivery? You've ordered your own GPUs, though, yes? That you
Yes.
So you guys are going to get ahead of the curve and start to figure out where these applications belong, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a hybrid, right? Because we're also working with the partner. There's, to build applications, if you're leveraging NVIDIA, there's a skill set to that today that we have folks learning, but we obviously leverage partners for much of that work. It's a really interesting time, and I can say with confidence that you and I both lived through the .com bubble and burst. And so there's also some caution of thinking out what your strategy looks like as we start to see um, companies either disappear, or now we're even watching them get bought out. So there's inherent risk of that too. So there is this importance of where do your models live, where does your data live, um, and so I think we're going to see a little bit of that play out. It's a little bit of the wild west, trying to even figure out what your not the strategy, but kind of what tools you're going to use, right? Because they're changing so rapidly. So it's it is not an easy undertaking for anyone, and I mean any corporation. Period. It's just
What
there's so many moving parts.
Yeah, yeah, and if you get too far ahead of it, right, your platform may not be prepared. You may be invested in something that can't scale to where you want to go. So that's a big issue. But getting involved is also important because you need these skills to. If you're not playing, you're not going to be able to really understand the nuances and all that good stuff and the skill sets. How does your political organizations, how do your commissioners, your council people, how do they feel about AI? Are you getting any pushback and fears over AI, Big Brother, et cetera?
We are very fortunate, and actually, I'm moderating a session at the Smart Cities Connect of all, I believe they're all elected officials, kind of around this topic. So for Cary, it was a directive from our council
Wonderful.
that they were like, "This is important. We need you to go do the work, create a strategy, develop the policy." The policy is now in place. But it was both around data and AI, because we did not have a strong data policy. And there was lots of discussion amongst council during the session about, we can't forget that fundamentally you need to have good data. And
Mhm.
so I think it was a great conversation. And of course, for me and the organization to have that type of buy in, right, and directive from your council is pretty impressive. So we're very fortunate from that. We also have a citizen committee around technology and communication that meets once a month, and they're very receptive to the work, and we tend to bring everything to them. Anything that would ever go public facing goes through this committee for feedback first. So I think we're in a good place, but you never know, right? The best we can do is continue, I think, to educate internally and externally the value, but also it comes, everything we do comes with risks. So the goal is to minimize those risks.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. The we're coming up on time, so let me just ask you this: of the smart city technologies and what's evolving, are
Mhm.
there any applications that you think are transformative that are really going to have a major impact on society, whether it's safety or the various things we solve for in the smart city?
And that is a great question. I have so I don't know if there's one thing, but this is what I do know. we, and I'm going to speak for Cary, have been really good at learning and applying that learning, whether it's just the technology or figuring out, like way back when everyone um, had a sensor or technology, everyone had their own dashboard, and figuring out you just need to ingest the data, all of that. And we have done dashboards for a long time. I think the benefit and the excitement for me around AI in general is taking all of that information and making it actionable, adaptable, right? And it becomes more of this living, breathing environment. So I keep sharing that I believe we're going from a smart city to a cognitive city. So it's one
Ah,
that adapts and learns continually, and you've
mhm.
moved away from the dashboards. So I think that. So I don't think it's one technology. I think it's them all working very differently in a new manner that brings new opportunities and solutions, and hopefully keeps us our communities thriving and resilient and just adapts. Right? Communities aren't stagnant, and people aren't stagnant within communities. So my belief is that AI is going to help us to continue to grow and adapt to whatever our communities are as they're evolving and changing.
Well, that cognitive city concept, I love that. I've had a pet peeve with the smart city because it doesn't really. A lot of applications don't commonly communicate, and the data sits in silos, and
Correct.
that's what I think that's a great way of putting it because pulling that data together and then letting it learn and think, and then create actions that a person could do, but the timing, the cost, et cetera. This just can pull it all, throw all the garbage to the side, and get and pull in the right stuff. That's a great concept. I hope we get there sooner
Me
than later.
too. Me
I'm
too.
a, yeah. And I hope the big brother civil liberties arguments sort of relax a little bit because the potential. We saw it with the Nancy Guthrie case and how they were trying to use video and all that. Not unfortunately not so well in that case, but in others it's been a miracle, right?
Sure.
Uh, Raymundo tells a story of finding a child within a couple of minutes based on their technology who was lost at a fair. So anyway, I digress. But I really appreciate you taking the time to join us for this episode.
I appreciate
Um, Cary's very impressive, and I see why the Smart Cities Connect event is coming back in March to your region, because I think you really most impressive region in the country in terms of
it.
collaboration, and as you share platforms, the potential is amazing.
Yes. Thank
Public
you.
safety and
Well,
transportation,
we
et
look
cetera.
forward to seeing you. Come on up to the park.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. You had a great event out there. That was wonderful. But all right, well, Nicole, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon at the Smart Cities Connect.
Right, thank you. Bye.
All right, bye bye.